Hello, fellow stargazers. Alicia from Future Frequency here with your February. I'm not doing horoscopes this month. I got very behind, I'm sorry. But I'll just be doing an overview of February in this video. And then next month in March, I will definitely be back, fingers crossed, on my new website. So, look, today is Friday, the 1st of February that I'm starting this on. And tomorrow we start off with Mars square Pluto. So this is on Saturday the 2nd here in Australia. Look, Mars square Pluto is a very powerful energy. It's a day where things may come to a head around who's in authority, who's in control, who's in power. You know, we've got Mars in Aries, which is a very fiery I want kind of energy, you know, and I want it now, and I'm going to go get it now. And that's going to be square Pluto in Capricorn, which is all about control and pushing things back. So this is definitely, there's quite a bit of tension with this. And what I would say is, you know, if you find yourself pushing up against things that are in control or trying to push back on you, try and find another way around it. Don't keep pushing up against a wall. Try to find a different way to do things. There is so much energy with this Mars in Aries, and you know, it's the Energized Bunny. It can just keep going and going. So don't be scared to try to find new solutions with this. And yeah, there will be a bit of, you know, having to look past your own ego in things, and also understand that the other person's probably coming from ego as well. So it's going to be hard to find a middle solution in this, but it's definitely trying not to get into heavy dramas with people. And if you can, just taking a deep breath and walking away if it's possible. And you know, as Venus moves into Capricorn on the 4th, on Monday the 4th, she's going to come in and bring a bit of calmness and lightness to all the heaviness that has been going on in Capricorn. You know, Saturn's been going through this area since December 2017, and it's getting closer and closer to Pluto there. And the South Node is in there as well, really asking, there's been quite a bit of tension, especially in January, around whatever area in your chart that Capricorn rules. So if you have a Capricorn sun, or if you are a Capricorn rising, or anyone, if you know your chart well and know which area Capricorn rules, look to that area and see and get an understanding of what's been playing out, where you're being asked to destructure so you can restructure, where you're being asked to let go of all things, or examine how the past is informing your present and whether or not you actually want that to be the way that it happens. And so, you know, can you go forward into the future with the things from the past that you want to have and not everything? So for example, if this is your 10th house, your house of career, there is the potential that you think that you should be doing your career a certain way, and that's what you've been told by your parents or by your peers or by social society around you. This is a time to actually examine whether or not your career or your public reputation is actually what you want and not what others want. And if it isn't what you want, then it's a time to be doing some adjustment and a time to re-reviewing this. And I think Venus is going to bring in a softening and an opening to this, and perhaps do some healing as well. This may come through friends or relationships, people that can come and help you, and to bring things together, to unify things and to help this. Venus in Capricorn really values hard work. She values discipline. She values setting goals and being successful. And with all the Aquarian energy there too, and the new moon the next day in Aquarius, it's almost like this need to look towards the future and really see, what do I have to put in place? What structures, what control mechanisms or boundaries do I need to put in place so that I can achieve what I need to achieve in the future. So yeah, that totally brings us into Tuesday the 5th, and it's 7:04 a.m. here in Brisbane, so that's 6:04 in Sydney. What we've got is a new moon in Aquarius, and the new moon in Aquarius each year is it's a new moon I love. And look, the beauty is it's taking us from eclipses, thank God, which is what the last cycle of new moons and full moons has been. So it's a time when we can get back to setting intentions, and we can get back to looking to the future and how to put things in place to help us get there. So we're thinking, new solutions to things, or being open to inspirations. Aquarius is a very airy, mindful sign. It is still ruled by Saturn, like the last new moon in Capricorn is, but it's an airy Saturn, not an earthy Saturn. So it definitely has its boundaries and its way of doing things. But I think what it brings with it is this calm neutrality and this stepped back feeling of being able to look at things without too much emotion, and being able to look at things from a place of almost forensic. So, okay, yes, emotionally, I feel really drawn to this, but is this what I need to do in the long run? Or is this just taking me back to sentiment? Or is this keeping me in the past and where I don't need to be? New moon Aquarius is also often about friendship groups and, yeah, so the society we live in, like-minded individuals. It's very inventive, very eccentric in a way, and this is a new moon to be setting intentions around having insights come in that you never would have expected, or being able to do things that are outside the box, being able to think laterally about things. This is definitely the sign of the visionary, the genius, and the entrepreneur. So anything with those sorts of energies that you want to bring into your life would be great. And of course, if you know what area of your chart Aquarius is covering, then you know which area of your chart the new moon is in, so you can add that into setting your new moon intentions as well. And later that week, so that is Tuesday the 5th of February, later that week we have the Sun sextile Jupiter, which is a lovely energy. And this is a chance for, the Sun is about opening up and growth. I mean, you think about it, wherever the sun shines, as long as it's not too harsh, we're able to have growth, we have warmth, we have connection. And Jupiter's those same things. So these two things these two big bright jewels in the sky are going to offer us benefit and connection. And it's a chance, I feel, for whatever plans and inspirations you've had, whatever wisdom downloads you've had since Jupiter moved into Sagittarius, whatever dreams you've been having since back in November last year, the Sun is offering you more oomph towards getting them. So if you've got a next step in a project, or there's a relationship that's been opened up, you may find that this is a day to add a bit of extra oomph to things, and to add some more energy into it, to shine a light on what's been happening, and yeah, help you make the most of this. As my friend Cass Tyndall says, make hay while the sun shines, because this is a year of, you've got your Saturn in Capricorn and your Jupiter in Sag. So whenever Jupiter in Sag triggers are coming up, such as this one, the confidence, the buoyancy, the optimism is all more easily tapped into, which is opposite to the responsibility, the duty, the strategic practicality, and sometimes the melancholy and the heaviness of that Saturn in Capricorn energy, which balance it out. So yeah, definitely make hay while the sun shines with this one. So then on the 10th, Sunday the 10th, we have Mercury moving into Pisces. Now, Mercury usually whips through the signs, spending 3 weeks in it, but this year he is going to be retrograding through all the water signs. So this Mercury into Pisces is the mark of a time of, Mercury isn't that strong in Pisces at all. Mercury wants clarity. It wants things to be direct, like clear and understandable, and it's seeking the truth of things, whereas Pisces is all about the flow, and it can be foggy and vague, and it can be confusing. So this is a time when there can be miscommunications happening. There can be it's possible to have deception, whether it's conscious or not. It's just making sure that if it's important to get things clear, if it's important that things are clear, to just check it and recheck it, check it and recheck it. So this is going to be an energy that, from now until, Mercury doesn't actually go retrograde in this sign until early March. The exact date is the 4th, or the 5th for Australia, but it's almost going to feel like a Mercury retrograde before then anyway. And then on the 20th, Mercury will go into what's called its shadow. So Mercury, that is when it first touches that part of the sky that Mercury is going to go over and then stop, go backwards to this point, and then go back forwards again. It's like this area of the sky from the 20th of February on will be revisited. So if you have planets in Pisces, or if you know which part of your chart is ruled by Pisces, just know that Mercury is going to be broadcasting the themes of this fairly loudly. Well, as loudly as you can above the rush of the water, or, really this is kind of Mercury drunk off its head, as Austin Coppock put it. This is Mercury gabbling in a corner. Someone who, can't pin things down into clarity, but it is about opening things up. One of the things that I would be suggesting in this time is it's an amazing time to be contemplating, to be doing meditation, to be trying to connect to your intuition and your instinct. Mercury retrograde turns us within. So if ever there's a time to connect to your inner self and or your higher self, this is the time to be putting in place things that will do it. And do remember that when you start things under energy like this, it gets imbued with that. So beyond the time that this transit ends, you are still taking that into the future with it. So if you are looking for a practice that connects you to your intuition more, I would suggest doing it, starting it after that 10th of February, definitely between the 10th and the 20th, as the moon moves from that full moon, that new moon phase, up to the full. So yeah, just be aware, it can mean that we are all over the place. I mean, think about something flowing down a river. It doesn't go in one straight line unless it has oars to keep it there. And this is like a rudderless boat floating down a river. It could get caught in eddies and dragged under. It could pop back up to the surface again. But it also is a chance for us to just take a deep breath and let go of all the control and the power issues and the harsh dynamics of the Capricorn energies that are being highlighted right now, and to just find an area of your life where imagination can come through. Because the other thing about these Mercury retrogrades is that Mercury is going to be conjuncting Neptune a number of times when this is happening. So the dates that this is going to happen, the first one is on the 19th. The second one is going to be right actually at the station of Mercury retrograde, which is on the 27th of March. So yeah, that is away. But just my feeling is these are times to really tap into the intuitive realms, those things that are beyond the physical, beyond the temporal. And you know, it's a wonderful time to be doing anything Mercury, communicating, writing, speaking, and but connected to the imagination, the ethereal realms, the spiritual realms. So, you know, creative writing, meditation, as I already talked about, dream journaling, any of that kind of stuff would be an awesome way to use this energy. And of course, with Neptune at that times, just water, 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 water. So, you know, get to the beach, get to a river, get to a lake, or, you know, have a bath and just spend time in that place. You know, it's a really great time to kind of feel where we end and can connect into something else. You know, there's nothing like standing on the shore, especially of a pounding ocean, and getting a sense of our insignificance in the face of all that energy and that flow that comes through from the ocean and the great mother that we live on. So beyond that week, on the 13th of February, we have, on the 11th, 12th of February, we have the moon moving into Taurus. And this is the last time for about 7 years that we're going to have the moon in Taurus without Uranus in there. The moon is exalted in Taurus. The moon is happy as anything in Taurus. This is a time to get your pleasure on. This is a time to enjoy the luxuries of life, you know, good food, delicious beverages, massages, getting into your body, being in the present moment. It's also a time to love, enjoy being part of the planet, you know, getting out in nature, just lying on the grass and watching the clouds scud by. It's a time to just pull in, a time to rest and a time to relax, a time to bring down the energy. And this is going to happen even more strongly as Mars moves into Taurus at the end of the week. But just before it does that, Mars comes and connects with Uranus, and this is like a strike of lightning hitting a barrel of gunpowder. Look, if your barrel of gunpowder is some inspiration you need and the lightning strike comes in, awesome, great way to use it. But it can mean that things can blow up in your face. Definitely not a day to go skydiving, base jumping, or, you know, any kind of dangerous activities, because this is an energy that accidents can happen under, especially when things are very much in motion, because this is Aries, it's fire. But it's also a day to use your passion and delve deep to find courage that can help you make breakthroughs. Uranus has been in Aries for the last, you know, since March 2010. There were a few, I think, it came out, but if there's been any themes in your life since 2010, you know, if you know where Aries lives in your chart, then you'll have more idea of what this is. But this is almost like a last chance to really make a sudden shift towards what you want, to fight for the freedom that you're craving, to harness a drive towards authenticity, and to be inspired by the passion to be yourself. So I absolutely believe that this is an awesome energy, but it's one to be handled with care. So if you find things blowing up in the people around you on that day, deep breath in, step back, just know that these are those two planetary energies in place. Both are very fast planets. They both have a very quick energy. So things may feel a bit sped up, but just know the next day, Thursday, as Mars moves into Taurus, there's going to be a big in-breath and an out-breath as the energy calms down and it grounds and it becomes a lot more practical. It's been great having Mars in Aries since the beginning of January. And yes, a lot of us have got stuff done and we've been busy, it feels. I don't know about you, but for me, January flew past. And I know that basically from, you know, the 14th of February, things will calm down. And it's also interesting, I feel, you know, this is St. Valentine's Day here in Australia and also in the US. And so it's interesting that Mars, you know, the planet of desire, the planet of passion, is moving into Venus's sign. So it may not necessarily be a day to spend with the one, you know, with loved ones. I know not everybody celebrates this romantic holiday, but it is a time to just connect to the pleasure of being you and whatever makes you feel loved, whether that's a bit of self-love, whether it's love with your friends, or whether it's love with a romantic partner. So let's move on to the week after, which this is a busy week. And on the 17th, we have a sextile from Venus to Neptune. And really, I feel like with all these planets in Capricorn sextiling Neptune in Pisces, whenever they're traveling through there, it's giving us a chance to ground our dreams, giving us a chance to really look at what we value about our dreams and bring that through to manifest them on a physical level. You know, what have you been imagining about your future? What have you been imagining about relationships? What kindness, generosity, and compassion can you anchor with those you love, those you value, or those you're in equal partnership with? What are your values around those things, and how can you bring them into your practical everyday life? I feel like this is a chance to actually walk our talk and live our life as we're inspired to be. So, you know, that famous Mahatma Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world, that kind of energy, because there is this kindness, this compassion that comes along with Pisces and Neptune in Pisces, this wanting to have this huge generosity of spirit to make the world a better place. And add the benefic into this in a sextile, it's like we're being invited to offer ourselves to the world to make the world a better place, if that makes sense. So again, have a look at where Pisces is in your chart. You know, for those with a Pisces sun, this is potentially you shining yourself out into the world. And again, you know, if you have a Pisces rising, very similar energy as well. The next day, we have the Sun conjunct Saturn. Oh, sorry, Venus conjunct Saturn. And my sense of this is she's coming and bringing, you know, it's a young maiden coming and bringing her healing balm to the warrior who is battle weary, and or the general who has been strategizing and thinking about how he can win this war, and he's tired. And so it's not going to stop the war being waged. It's not going to stop the harshness being there. But a balm is being offered, whether that, you know, is a kindness from a loved one, or a bit of easement from something higher than ourselves. It's a chance for us to think about others in the strategies we're making as well. You know, when we're making our goals, how will they affect our partner, our children, our parents, our friends? You know, those we call intimates in our lives, those we call equals, and to really keep that in mind as we're doing that. Then on the 19th, we have the Sun moving into Pisces, and this is where things really get dreamy, and this is where things really slow down even more. You know, now we've got quite a lot of yin focus. We have already Mercury in Pisces, which is a yin water sign. We have Mars in earthy yin Taurus, and now we have the Sun in watery yin Pisces as well as Mercury. And that same day, as I talked about earlier, we've got that Mercury conjunct Neptune. Really, what I would say is this is not a day for things done. This is a day for dreaming. This is a day for meditating. This is a day for being in retreat. It's likely to be a day where we just can't get our mind to work, and that's okay. You know, it's almost a day to sit on the couch watching Netflix, or to immerse ourselves in something that doesn't require a lot of power of thought. Definitely a day to spend at the beach if you can, and a day to dip into the feminine. The next day, and I feel like it's a chance to connect to our instinct and our intuition, and get some answers if any of those are needed. Because early the next day, I mean, you know, other than Australia and New Zealand, this is actually still going to be the 19th, but we have that full moon in Virgo at 1:53 a.m. in Brisbane, which is 12:53 a.m. in Sydney. And, you know, I really love the potential of this full moon and its chance to bring a little bit of analysis into our dreams. And yes, we've still got all this watery yin energy in there, but this full moon in Virgo is going to want to drill down on the details a little bit, as much as it can, because Mercury will still be a bit intoxicated from its connection to Neptune. But it's almost like waking up from that dream state and going, okay, this is how I'm going to put things in place, and this is what's required. Virgo is also very much being of service to things. So if you can see, you know, if your visions and ideals were about making the world a better place, it's like, okay, well, how can I practically put those sorts of things into focus? You know, what are my next steps with this? And look, it may take a little while for those next steps to happen, with Mercury moving into its shadow that exact same day too. And it's interesting, at that point where Mercury moves into its shadow, it forms a sextile to Saturn. So it's like there's an anchor being thrown out, and that Mercury can kind of come back to at a later stage. That will be its end point as it does this. So, you know, I think I've used this on the podcast, but it's that idea of scuba diving, especially when you're scuba diving in a place where there's a strong current. You will often put an anchor in place, or and then reel out a line. And if the water's murky and cloudy, which definitely can happen when Neptune's involved, it's a way to be able to get back to where you were, so the currents don't sweep you too far away and you get lost literally under the water. So definitely having a map and everything mapped out in the beginning, but yeah, using whatever you need to form that Saturn anchor so that you have a place to come back to. And there's a safety in that, I feel, where you can explore and you feel more free and you are more able to let yourself go with the flow if you know that that anchor's there and you can come back to it. I guess it's like a ship in a safe harbor. You never, well, not necessarily a safe harbor, but a ship at sea, you know, if it can drop its anchor somewhere and then you can rest, and, you know, the wind will still blow the ship around and the waves will still be bobbing you up and down, but you don't need to take it into that safe harbor if you know that you've got that good anchor in place. Then the next major aspect I want to talk to you about is on the Saturday, the 23rd of February, we have got Venus coming up and conjuncting Pluto. And this is very much about looking to your relationships and finding out about where power imbalances may be and trying to rectify that situation. And this is trying to rectify it with consensus. This isn't you going off and thinking, how am I going to do this on my own? This is definitely offering the olive branch to somebody else and going, how can we fix this together? Or do you want to fix this together? Or is this a chance for us to just break and walk away? it will probably require digging down into the depths for real understanding to happen and real connection to happen. So I would say be prepared to come in and be as open and honest and vulnerable. But that's the space where real change happens, and that's the space where brand new things can grow. It's where, when we have deep understanding of another, we often have deep compassion too. And so if mistakes are made going forwards, there is more forbearance for each other and what can happen. So yes, this is possibly about partnerships, but it's about values too, and just how we relate to others in our everyday life. So this could be anything from, if it's happening in the first house, it is possibly your relationship with yourself and a mirror being held up to you on how you act in the world. And, if this is in your 11th house of friendships, then yes, that could be reflected in that area of your life. If it's happening in the 6th house, it's potentially around colleagues. 4th house, family. So yeah, this is in Capricorn, so if you know that area of your life, and I'm sure many of you do, because it's that area that is being lit up very strongly at the moment, one of them, yeah, it's a chance to pour again that healing balm into a place that has been feeling some pain recently. And the next day, Neptune is actually going to come and sextile this point as well. So I feel like once the vulnerable openings and have happened, then clear-headed discussion and communication can follow forth the next day. And Mercury is offering a chance to broadcast this. It's like putting the loudspeaker to that area so it can let others know what has been found and what has been delved into there. Planet Pluto is about transformation, so this isn't an area, this isn't a time where you'll just look at that and go, oh yes, isn't that nice, it needs to be changed, I'll come back and look at that later. You are being called to actually make the changes, and so if you can do it, then and put things practically into place, then I feel like it's actually going to make later transits that are going to come up to these points, especially in June, easier and less tough to cope with. If the changes are being made now, then you won't have as much to shift when it comes to that place. After that, Venus has another connection to the South Node. And again, I feel like this is that theme again of all those more challenging planets, or as we say in traditional astrology, the malefic points and planets where we're being asked to change. So again, this is another dip into that. And Venus is going to be asking us to really sit down and have a look at those past patterns that we don't want to hold anymore, and offering a chance to let them go. One technique that I really love with letting things go is EFT tapping. So I will put in the show notes below this another YouTube video you can look at to do this. But yeah, it has some fantastic ways of doing it, of letting go of things, but it does ask you to sit with the pain, and it does ask you to have a conversation with those areas of ourselves that we don't necessarily want to. This potentially could be also about having a look at our ancestor story, beyond our parents and the conditioning we got within the family, the nuclear family. It's looking beyond, how did our grandparents contribute to who we are and how we're living our life, and our great-grandparents and those beyond them. What are those life stories that are sitting there that are really affecting who we are now? And in many ways, there's some awesome stuff there to be tapped into. And in other ways, it may be, just because my grandparents lived through tough times in the Depression, I don't have to be scrimping and scrounging everything or eating everything on my plate just to survive. You know, I don't have to be in that survival mode anymore. Or it could be that, you know, there was trauma or grief that happened, you know, 3 or 4 generations ago that we can be releasing now. And this is a beautiful energy to be doing that under. Yeah, so to give that a try too. And again, it's funny, you know, this is another pairing where exactly the next day we're going to have Mercury trining the north node and sextiling that south node. So that is going to be an opportunity for us to have a look at our future. So, you know, as we're letting go of the past, where do we want to go, and have conversations around that. You know, with the north node in Cancer at the moment, it's very much about connecting to the feminine. And I feel like, you know, in February, when so much switches into that feminine yin energy, we get a chance to really slow down and connect to what's important in our life, and connect to the chance of, what can I nurture? What can I care for? What can I grow? What can I protect? And create boundaries around, but in a place where something else is able to grow. You know, where can I pour the water and shine the light on something? I feel like this is a feminine way of doing things and an opportunity to do it. And I'm not saying that it's only female, it's men as well. But again, it's tapping into the intuition and the sensitivity within us all, which we can do a lot more easily when we slow down, when we retreat, when we rest, when we're more in the rhythms of the moon, the planet. We're more able to listen to those rhythms within ourselves and not be out, you know, eating at that buffet of crazy. That was more what January was about. So I think that's it for February. So I do wish you, as always, much success and luck with this month ahead. I think it's a one that gives us all a time to retreat back, potentially lick the wounds, but also look at the bounty that January and December brought us, and to just sense, okay, where am I going to make these next steps? Because basically from next month, with Uranus moving into Taurus, and then, you know, things getting a lot busier in the sky in the middle of the year, we're really going to have appreciated in, you know, the potential marathon that the rest of 2019 will be, is that moment we took to rest so that we could gather ourselves together, you know, recharge our batteries and be more aligned with what is important within ourselves, know where we're coming out of, and not reacting as much. And therefore, we can really make informed choices going forward. As always, you know, if you want a more personalized understanding of this, you can book in for a reading, have a look at my website. And I just wish you all the luck for the month of February ahead. Bye.